For most of recorded history, the tiger was assumed to be an animal of the East, a creature of monsoon forest, bamboo shadow, Hindu myth, and Chinese silk. We thought we knew it. We thought we knew where it came from. We thought we knew how many kinds there were. We even thought we knew what a tiger was. Then the genomes arrived, and the picture kept moving. If the tiger is one of the most thoroughly studied big cats on Earth, catalogued, photographed, counted, subspecies D, drawn on flags, why does its origin story keep failing every time someone asks it more carefully? That is the question that has quietly rearranged big cat biology over the last decade, and the answer is not the one we grew up with. For most of the 20th century, the tiger was treated like a familiar story stitched together from skins and skulls. There was the Bengal tiger of the Indian peninsula, the Siberian, or Amur, tiger of the Russian Far East, the South China tiger, almost gone, the Sumatran tiger of the Sunda Islands, and then a series of ghosts, the Caspian tiger, the Bali tiger, the Javan tiger, 3 subspecies that drifted off the map during the last century, 3 of them gone. Each was filed under its own Linnean box. Each was given a range. Each was assumed to be the slow product of mountains, rivers, and time. The conventional wisdom was tidy. Tigers had been tigers for a very long time, and their variety was the patient, ancient work of geography. What the whole genomes say, when you line them up, is something stranger. In 2018, a team led by Yuechen Liu published a genome-wide study in Current Biology, sequencing the complete DNA of 32 tiger specimens drawn from across the species range, modern blood and museum skins both. The aim was simple in principle, almost impossible in practice: settle, once and for all, how many real tigers there were. The phylogeny that fell out of that work did not merely confirm earlier guesses. 6 living subspecies emerged as statistically robust, monophyletic groups. The familiar big 3 were there: Bengal, Amur, South China, but the picture around them tightened. The Malayan tiger, long folded into the Indo-Chinese subspecies, stood on its own. The Sumatran tiger, isolated on its island, kept its separate branch. And the 3 extinct lineages, Caspian, Javan, Bali, proved to be deeply divergent within a tiger family that, in genomic terms, is younger than the cave paintings at Lascaux. That word, younger, is the one that rearranges everything. Modern tigers are not the descendants of a long, branching empire. They are the descendants of a near extinction. The whole genome data pointed to a severe population bottleneck sometime in the late Pleistocene, on the order of 110,000 years ago, in which genetic variation collapsed through the ancestral stock that gave rise to every living subspecies, and to the 3 extinct ones that were still alive in the 20th century, and then fanned outward across a continent in a geological eye. Liu et al., 2018. This is why the Caspian tiger, which once ranged from Anatolia to the Kazakh steppe, is so startlingly close, genetically, to the Amur tiger frozen out in the Russian Far East. The 2 were not parallel products of separate evolutionary histories. They were, the evidence suggests, recent recolonizations of very different habitats drawn from one common, shrunken reservoir, Caspian and Amur as sister-range siblings of a single rebound, not 2 independent tigers that happen to look alike. It is also why a hair pulled from a museum specimen, in a drawer in Leiden, can still speak. In 2015, Huanrue Shui and colleagues generated mitochondrial sequences from 23 museum specimens, including 11 voucher skins from Java and Bali, following ancient DNA procedures designed for degraded, fragmented, chemically resilient material. From it, they reconstructed ancestry, the Bali tiger as distinct, the Javan tiger as distinct, both members of a Sunda Island lineage that had split from the mainland tigers on a timeline that surprised everyone, somewhere near the Toba supereruption of around 74,000 years ago, when Sumatra and Java briefly became at once refuge and trap. Shui et al., 2015. The island tigers were not ancient relics. They were young branches of a young stock, evolved quickly, and lost completely after the 1930s and 1940s. What this all means, taken together, is that the tiger as a creature is far older than the tiger as a population. The species stretches back more than 2 million years. The Longdan skull from Gansu province in northwestern China, named Panthoras dansky, is the oldest confirmed fossil tiger anywhere, dated to roughly 2.16 to 2.55 million years ago. The living diversity is a fraction of that age. Earlier estimates of tiger subspecies divergence, calibrated cautiously against the genetic clock, lift the origin of the Sunda tigers to somewhere between roughly 58,000 and 50,000 years before present, after the first cave paintings, after the great human expansion out of Africa, near in time to the volcanic winters that may have pruned the Neanderthals. The mainland subspecies diverged not long after. If a biologist had walked the forests of Pleistocene Asia more than 100,000 years before our own moment, they would not have recognized the tigers they saw as Bengal, Amur, Caspian, or any of the categories we now name. Those categories did not yet exist. The tiger, in other words, is not what its legend claims. The legend says an ancient creature. The biology says a recent one. Then where did it begin? This is the second question, and the answer is also not the one we set out with. The conventional reading was that the tiger radiated outward from South or Southeast Asia, with the Bengal tiger treated as the trunk of the family tree and the others as branches growing off it. The whole genome phylogeny pushes against this. The deepest splits among tigers do not, surprisingly, fall between Bengal and the rest. The pattern researchers describe instead locates the ancestral population in northeastern Asia, on the continent, not in the Indian peninsula, and proposes a later southward expansion that carried tiger lineages through South China and into Bengal only after the bottleneck. A 2022 ancient DNA study of Caspian tiger remains argued that the Caspian tiger itself most likely dispersed from an ancestral northeastern Asian stock and, on its way west, picked up gene flow from southern Bengal tigers before vanishing from the wild in the 20th century Bioarxiv Caspian study. The Caspian tiger was not the last word of the tiger's western range. It was, in genomic reading, almost a hybrid chapter, Indian DNA moving west into a ghost subspecies that European and Russian hunters finished off. And the oldest fossil keeps pointing the same way. The Longdan tiger sat in Gansu, in the upper Yellow River Basin, far from the symbolic heartland of Kipling and the Indian jungle. So the paradox arrives full circle. We are confident that tigers existed. We are confident that tigers are big cats in the genus Panthera. We are confident that today there are roughly 4,000 wild tigers left, divided across 6 recognized living subspecies and the memory of 3 extinct ones. What we are no longer confident about is whether tiger was always a stable category, a calm, ancient type that simply wandered into separate valleys and quietly became Bengal, Amur, Sunda, Caspian. The genome says the tiger is younger than its name suggests. The mitochondrial fragments stored in museum drawers say the extinct island tigers were almost startlingly recent. The ancient bottleneck, somewhere near 110,000 years before present, says the machine that produced every modern tiger nearly broke once. The fossils say the ancestral stock sat in northern China when it first appeared. And the ancient DNA of the Caspian says even that ghost was partly Indian in its last century. If every tiger alive today descends from a population that nearly vanished, the word tiger begins to mean something different than it used to. It does not mean an ancient emblem of the East, untouched by catastrophe. It means a survivor. A survivor of a demographic collapse older than our own species' great expansion. A survivor whose diversity was rebuilt from a narrow ledge, rapidly, more than once. A survivor whose vanished cousins, Caspian, Javan, Bali, were not relics of an older tiger empire but younger experiments that fell off the world in our grandparents' lifetimes. A survivor whose oldest known fossil sat in northern China rather than in the forests of legend, and whose genome still carries a record of that long, ice-aged near-miss in every stripe. What a tiger is, in the end, is not the calm inheritance of an ancient type. It is what came back from the edge. If stories like this where a familiar animal turns out to be stranger than its own mythology are part of why you watch, you might consider subscribing. The next ancient DNA is always the one we haven't read yet.